Hey guys, I want to start this morning by telling you a story. It is one of my favorite stories. It is a story that has been a favorite for millions of people over thousands of years. It has been told to billions in hundreds of languages and hundreds of thousands of people groups. People all over the world are hearing this story today, and they will be hearing this story constantly because it's a story that has resonated with people since before electricity, before Instagram, before the wheel, when we were all just sitting around campfires and wondering what would happen next. It's the story of the beginning of things, and it starts in a garden. You're probably already familiar with this story if you've spent any time in church world, but today I'm going to tell it, hopefully, like you've never heard it told before. And hopefully, at the end of it, you begin to see something important. Because this month, we're beginning a series called Us for Them. We're starting it with this story because this story is the beginning of it. Us for Them is about people. It's about others. It's about who we're supposed to be as followers of Jesus, about how we're supposed to be people who are for others. But to understand why that is, we have to understand who we are, where we came from, and what that means about God. So I'm going to start this story, and we're going to spend this morning talking through it and talking about it. Ready? Cool. Let's dive in. So once upon a time, a long, long time ago, there was a garden. There were no plants on the ground yet. Dew came out of the ground. There was no rain, and it just misted everything. And God made a garden out of this dusty, misty, weird nothingness, this Silent Hill fog. And then God stooped down on one knee, took the dust and the clay in his hand, and packed it into a little thing. Now the Hebrew word for dust or clay is Adam. And so God made a little figure out of the dust, and after it was all packed and shaped exactly how he wanted, God breathed his own breath into this thing, this little clay doll, and he named it Adam. And the little clay doll started wandering around in the garden that he had made. And God started making animals and bringing them out to the doll to play with. Started saying, Adam, what do you want to name this one? And we don't know how long this process went on, but one by one, Adam met every animal in the entire world. Everything God wanted to make, from the tiger to the platypus to octopodes, which is, according to my friend in Seattle, the plural of octopus. I thought it was octopi, but apparently it's octopodes. Anyway, that is a rabbit trail. Rabbits, God made those. And so God brings all these things out to Adam, and he says, which of these do you like? Which one's your favorite? Which one's going to be your forever pet? And Adam liked most of them. But instantly, the first thing that this little clay doll knew was that something about the breath of God inside of him meant he needed to be around people like himself. And so Adam said, none of these creatures are like me. I feel alone. And so God put Adam to sleep and took one of those little ribs that he'd shaped out of the clay and pulled it from Adam's side. And from that material, fashioned Adam somebody just like him, someone from his side to be by his side forever. And Adam received Eve, which in the Hebrew is actually Ish, which means woman. And so Adam, the dust guy, and the first woman were let loose to enjoy this perfect garden that God had made. Nothing was wrong there as far as we know. Everything seemed perfect, and God had made this place as a playground for them to cultivate, to grow every kind of thing that can be grown, to play with all the animals. It was a place of peace, where these two innocent little creations could live out the rest of their lives. Could fall in love, could have children, could raise a family, could start a species. But as we know, we don't live in a perfect garden. And many of us are not innocent people anymore. In this garden was a snake. And that snake, which apparently could talk back in the day, found woman while she was wandering around minding her own business in the garden. Now there were only two rules, actually one rule. There was only one rule in the whole garden. There was one tree that God had made for his own reasons, and I don't know what those reasons were. But this tree had fruit, the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. Woman knew she wasn't supposed to eat that fruit. God said, on the day that you eat it, you will die. And so, clay man and woman did not eat the fruit. That was not their place. They had a lot of other stuff to eat. They had a lot of animals to play with. They had a lot of garden to garden, or whatever people do in a garden. I don't know. I haven't mowed my lawn in so long. God made all of this stuff for them. But this snake was really cunning, and he decided that he was going to trick her. So Snake comes up to the innocent woman and tells her, hey, why did God tell you you weren't allowed to eat? The woman, confused, we didn't say that. He said we couldn't eat that one tree. And he's like, that tree? That tree over there? You're not allowed to eat that tree. Why wouldn't you be able to eat that tree? The woman's like, because it'll kill me? What do you mean? And the snake said, no, it won't. That's not... No, God doesn't want you to eat that tree because it's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You'll get smarter than God if you eat that. And he doesn't want that because he's jealous if you don't. He played on her insecurities, on parts of herself she probably didn't even know were there. Created this need. And he created this mistrust for her closest friend, her creator, her father, her God. And woman, innocent woman living in a garden where nothing ever went wrong, had no defenses. And so she ate the fruit. She gave some to Adam to eat. She told him what the snake had said, and Adam fell for it too. But God wasn't lying. That fruit was deadly. Not in the way where you eat it and you croak like poison today. But as they ate it, those insecurities, those doubts, those divisions, those barriers, that sense that I'm not at peace with the people around me, came in like a flood. The first thing Dust Man and Woman noticed was that they didn't have any clothes. Clothes had not been invented yet, but they suddenly didn't like their own bodies. They started to distrust each other. When God came back, instead of explaining what had happened, begging for mercy, saying they were hurt, not knowing what had happened to them, they started blaming each other, fighting with each other, blaming the snake, trying to throw God and the snake and everyone under the bus. Adam and Eve's relationship was broken, and these best friends had no compassion left for one another. God's perfect garden was broken, and he had a choice. It was still really early in the experiment. He could just restart everything. But you can pick up from context. God does something unusual. Instead of scrapping the whole project, he explains to them how things will be different now. He explains how broken everything is. He explains pain and death and all these things to his favorite children, to the creatures he made with his hands, that he breathed into with his own mouth. And then he lets them loose. He lets them go out into a world that he knows they will destroy. And on their way out of the garden, as he kicks them out, he gives them clothes to keep them warm. Now it's God. He knows how this story's going to go. He knows what that tree does. Adam and Eve's their kids, kill each other. Cain kills Abel and runs off into the desert. Later on, their descendants decide that they have no need of God anymore, that they're going to kick him out of their lives, and that they will get to heaven themselves by building a giant tower. Fast forward a few generations later, the world is so evil, so wicked, so full of hurt and brokenness, so full of people who just want to rip each other apart, that God really starts to toy with the idea of just scrapping everything. That was an open idea. But at the very last moment, when he's about to reset everything, to fix the problem, to get rid of these broken people, he can't do it. He saves one family, and the cycle keeps going, and he promises to never do anything like that ever again. Why? Because God is for us. God has been in love with human beings from the beginning. And in our lives, we know that being around people causes a lot of brokenness. It hurts sometimes to have friendships, to have relationships, to have siblings, to have bullies at school, to have teachers that don't understand why you can't get your homework done and don't treat you like you have a functional brain. But all of that God knew. He knew how much pain there was in the world, and he was so in love with us that he wasn't willing to scrap it to save everything else. You are so valuable that you are worth the rest of the world to God. And so is the person next to you, and so is the person next to them. And this month, as we talk about us for them, I want to talk about what that means. That kind of insane, crazy love. What that means for how we treat our neighbors, for how we treat our friends, for how we treat our enemies, for how we treat everyone in our lives. Because if that is how God sees it, and we are his children, and his breath is in our lungs, then what choice do we have but to love other people that same way that he loves us? So this month, we're going to have you reading through Genesis to understand where we came from. We're going to be talking about a bunch of stories from the Bible. And again, we're going to be coming back to this way that God loves us. And I hope you will stay tuned, because I think that if we dig into these stories, they will change our lives.